Alright, I'm going to try to do a finished video of my axle swap here. This is what it turned out looking like. I finished it a couple months ago, I just haven't got around to doing this video yet. I'll try to point out a few of the measurements that I didn't know when I started, and people may want to know for reference doing their swaps. Start here in the front. As far as placement of the coil bucket, measure off of the back side of this to the leading edge of the coil bucket right here. Should be 13.5 inches. And then you just, of course, put the bottom of the coil bucket up against the frame. Here's what my brake lines turned out like. Said in the other video, got to flip the sides and, switch driver to passenger, passenger to driver, and then flip them over down here on the caliper. But that's what they turned out like, or the passenger side one turns out like. The radius arm brackets basically just butted up against this body mount, pretty self-explanatory, and then put the bottom up against the frame. There's that. There's my 2-inch BDS coil spacer. Not real comfortable out here in the rocks. As far as your drag link, I put a new Moog drag link on. You have to trim. I took it apart right here. Trim this one anywhere from about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, so you can adjust it far enough to center your steering wheel. Your pitman arm, you have to use a 3/4 inch tapered reamer. If you're using your OBS steering box and pitman arm, ream that to fit the Super Duty drag link ball joint. That's pretty much on the front. I used a Absalute Customs drop bracket or track bar bracket. It's got 3 adjustments you can do. I've got mine in the far right adjustment, but he sends 2 plates. One of them's a centered hole, the other one's offset. You can flip that offset one to do the far left, or I guess it'd be far right. I'm in the far left position. You have to, right here, this hole, there's a hole underneath it, or a rivet or something, I can't remember, coming out of the frame there. You take that out, then you got a hole there. Tighten a wheel stud down in there for the back bolt for the track bar bracket, and then I tried using a hole saw to put a hole in the frame there, but I broke 2 pilot hole bits, so I just cut it with a torch and then bolt it there in the front. Sorry if I'm sniffing a lot. Allergies are horrible. As far as the rear end, it's pretty straightforward. Use the OBS yoke on the Super Duty axle, and your drive shaft will bolt right up. The holes right here have to be drilled out to accept the larger, I can't remember the size, accept the larger bolt from the Super Duty suspension. Use your speed sensor out of your OBS axle. It'll bolt right into that Super Duty axle housing. I put 5-inch blocks on the rear. I wish I would have, if I would have known the whole process before I started, I would have used a Sky shackle drop on the rear, so I didn't have to use as big of blocks, but that may be something I do in the future. But you have to, you can see my leaves are wore out. I need new leaves too, but that's on the list. On the rear, I had to weld my Super Duty shackle perches to the frame because I didn't want to drop I was running out of time. I didn't want to drop the rear tank to get bolts through the frame there, so I just welded it. I tried using the OBS shackle perch, but the shackle would not fit down inside of it and you couldn't line the bolt up. The brake line on the rear, use the OBS one that comes off the frame, just flip it over and upside down and bolt it to the Super Duty axle. And then the one shock mount has to be reversed to go to the front side. On the Super Duty, one shock's on the rear, it faces the back of the truck, but pretty simple, just unbolt it and flip it around and put your shocks on. But I'm very pleased with how it turned out. Rides a whole lot better, looks a whole lot better, sits a little higher. And if you have any questions, comment on the video. I'll try to answer all of them. And I don't know what's next, probably exhaust and interior. I'm getting new bumpers this week from Absalute, front and rear. But follow me on Instagram, Justin51986, and you can look me up on Facebook, Justin Hawking. And I'll try to do another video after I get my bumpers and kind of review them a little bit. See ya.